Customer says place my oil pressure switch in my 13 Tahoe. Dealer told me to. They quoted her about $800 and something. We're in like the $350 range. I will show you some quick checks. She asked for no diagnostic, but I'm gonna double check some stuff. I have the scan tool connected, engine oil pressure sensor circuit, high voltage, P0523. Very common on these. I'd like to first see if that little needle moves at all. Does not look like it. So we can look at some live data. I think the last one I did, like the pressure was stuck at high, like some 100 and something PSI. Engine oil pressure sensor 129 PSI. Doesn't seem correct. Should be somewhere like in the 40-50 range for idle, which we're at now. I'll go ahead and hit the throttle. Does not react. We'll see what happens with the key on, engine off. There's car off, car back on. During cranking, nothing. So we're not going to do any like manual oil pressure gauge comparison or anything. This is what she asked for. No one's going to do oil pressure on a manual gauge, though. I don't really know if that's even something that anyone would do, because you have to take out the sensor in order to do that, and at that point just put a sensor in there. I'll show you where it is. The engine configurations on these trucks, there's a few of them, so they're all about in the same spot. Most of them are pretty easy to get to with some creative extension swivel work and the 1 1/16 socket that you need to get the sensor off. This one's tucked behind this little panel thing. Kind of annoying. I'm basically crawling up inside the engine bay, sitting there using some long picks to get the electrical connector off. Let me show you that right now. So back on the driver's side, behind the intake, that little panel, the black plastic one with the foam at the bottom. On this one, the sensor, that little blue and white connector, that's what we're after. So work instructions from GM say take off the intake manifold. Most everyone does not do that. This one's one of the harder ones to get to that I've done. I'm not taking off the intake, and I don't really see a reason to. If you're gonna go so far as doing that, there's a couple other things that you should probably replace at the same time. 2 knock sensors, knock sensor harness, and intake manifold gaskets, all that stuff. I mean, those are real common failures for this engine as well. So if you're really going to go after this by taking the intake off, then you need to go ahead and replace those parts, or else you're doing all that labor for nothing. So here I am sitting inside her engine bay. Got out the tools, which I think I'm going to need. This is that socket. You might be able to see the rounded edges in the hex. This came with a O2 sensor socket set. Normally works good on a swivel, 3-inch extension. Got some like big long pick, another pick, small pick for the little filter that gets replaced as well. This is under the sensor. This is the new sensor AC Delco. This is the one you're going to want to use not an aftermarket one. And I will get this one out and come right back. So I've got the hardest part done here. The electrical connector lock I got removed. I had to use that really long Mayhew brand, like 18-inch pick tool. With my left hand I rotated the lock up. In my right hand I had stuffed way back here on the lock. Picked it up not to lose it. The last one of these I did, I dropped it down there. It was a big pain. Did get the electrical connector off. If you can see that blue thing moving, that's it. My luck though, it is raining. I'm working outside right now. I do that sometimes to stay out of the guy's way, and plus they have the music going in the shop. Anyway, next step is to get creative with my socket swivel setup. Pull that one out, pull the filter out, reverse, put the electrical clip back on, and then snap this guy back into place. And then clear the code. You have to clear the code on these newer ones, newer meaning 2010 plus or so, before the pressure gauge will work again, and I'll show you that here shortly. The little filter out is all by feel, really. I mean, you can't see anything. What I like to do is take my pick, which has a little kink at the end, and I shove it down and I poke a hole through it, which then allows me to kind of hook the thing and then pull up and kind of pry it out of the hole. That's the filter now. New parts are going in. Burning my leg here on the alternator. Alright. But basically you want to, everything you do by feel, you want to like find, like I'm finding the sensor hole first before I start pushing the filter anywhere. So put one finger in the filter hole, then I put the filter in, kind of seating it with my hand there. New sensor comes with both a gasket and a little tiny bit of sealing compound on it. Again, AC Delco part. There, can't really get you the part number. But if you are taking the intake off, I mean, for sure it's going to be easier to reach. Just take you longer. I mean, a real professional probably can get it done pretty quick. I'm not fast with the intakes. Plus, there's a whole lot of other parts that I'd recommend you replacing, just because knock sensor and sensor harnesses are common issues on these. The water gets under there and corrodes the harness and sensors. Finally got everything back together. Had to feed one piece at a time, so socket that like onto the sensor, put the socket, and then feed this down to connect past this plate. There's a fuel hose right here, and like a brake booster vacuum hose here, and then another hose sitting up on top. All that had to kind of move around in order to get those pieces in there. Just another note on why not to take stuff apart. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's one reason. You just don't know what you're going to run into if you're going to break connectors or hoses like these. You know, quick connects are pretty easy to break. Old plastic, you just don't know what's going to fall apart when you're taking stuff off that doesn't need to for the job. So the more you touch, the more risk there is, and that's one reason why we just don't do it this way, so, or that way. So I'll get this engine cover back on, kind of like this two little things that fit into the clips right there. And then we'll go clear the code and be done. Back in the car, ignition on. Let us go ahead and erase codes. Like I said, have to do that for it to work. Codes have been erased. And let's see if our gauge works. And that's promising there. So yeah, 40, 30 something. Going up with engine RPM. It's fixed, it doesn't matter, but just for fun, we can also watch that on the scan tool. Engine oil pressure sensor, 31, 32. And now we're working, so that indeed was the problem. The other somewhat common issue, the cluster on these tend to be a little problematic, but not as much as the oil pressure sensor. Thanks for watching. Until next time.